Hello, and welcome to Struggle and Success, Stories from Entrepreneurs. My name is Lisa McGuire, and I'm an Associate Director for the Center for Career Development at UConn. And I welcome all of you here. I know we're going to have a really good session with our panelists who have been there, done that, and continue to do that. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few items so you know how to participate in today's webinar. You should see your attendee interface on your computer desktop in the upper right-hand corner. You're listening in using your computer speaker system by default. If you'd prefer to join over the phone, just select phone call in the audio pane and the dial-in information will be displayed. You'll have the opportunity to submit text questions by typing your questions into the questions pane of the control panel. You may send in your questions at any time during the presentation, and these will be addressed during the question and answer session at the end of it. Once you leave today's webinar, you'll be directed to an evaluation for the presentation, and we'd appreciate it if you would complete that and provide your feedback. That only makes us better, and it gives us ideas for future webinars. Note that today's presentation is being recorded and will be emailed to all webinar registrants within 24 hours. So now that we have that housekeeping piece out of the way and I don't have to read so much anymore, I'd like to introduce the panelists. Today we have three panelists, as you can see, and I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves, but first I'm going to just give you a little bit. So we have Breno Donati, whose business is Winfield Street Coffee, that was started in 2015. We have Arshad Bal, whose business is Amrita Health Foods, that was started in 2013. And we have Lucy Galasha, whose business is Riobamba Studio, that was started just recently in 2020. So I'd love to hear more, and I'm looking forward to hearing so much more about each of your businesses. Let's start with Lucy. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your current business?
Sure. Hello, everybody. My name is Lucy Galarza, and I am an immigrant from Ecuador, and I've been living in Norwalk, Connecticut for the majority of my life. I actually come from a musical family. I'm sixth generation musician, and I went to the City College of New York to pursue music. But one of the new passions and a new curiosity that emerged for me during the pandemic, during quarantine, right when I got an apartment, was actually decor, interior design, and that world. So I really was finding things for my own home to decorate because there was nothing else to do, and I wanted to feel good in my own home. And slowly I began, starting a vintage collection, and people were really complimenting me on my design, and people were wanting to buy the things that I was finding. So that's kind of like how it started, how Riobamba Studio started for me. And it's really been a fun, exciting process for me to take on this big challenge. Being an entrepreneur, having your own business is not something that I was planning on. Kind of happened. This side hustle became something that gave me a lot of inspiration, a lot of passion, and I actually quit my job just a month ago. So now I'm really taking this time to be more clear about my intentions for my business, make goals for myself, because I feel like I've just been winging it this whole time. And I was also, pretty busy with my full-time job, but now I'm in this new stage where I can prioritize my business, my passions, and, take it from there.
Thanks, Lucy. So you're one of the only panelists whose business was born out of the pandemic, right? You were sort of, that kind of pushed you, which is kind of cool. Arshad, can you share a little bit about yourself and your business, and tell us, you started well before the pandemic.
Yeah. So I actually run two businesses. One is a brand, and then one is a production facility. So the brand started in 2013 and has gone through a certain amount of pivots in terms of, we make healthy snacks, so allergen-friendly snacks. That was started because of my son's journey with autism and using a low inflammation diet in helping him with some of the recovery process. And then that whole concept of using low inflammation foods really helped me as I went through some gluten allergies and things like that to understand that basic snacks, if they're made low inflammation, can really be tasty and beneficial to people. So when I first started my business, I outsourced the production to what's called co-packers. I did that for many years, grew the business significantly. But then a couple of years, about 4 years ago, I decided to pivot towards e-commerce. And then while I was on that journey, I also decided that I wanted to be more vertically integrated, like actually own the production and own the marketing and all of that. And a big part of that was because I like working, seeing the product being made. Plus, I felt like for a small brand, it could be good to show people the end-to-end piece, like actually making the product, having a team and all that. And that's what led me to starting my facility 2 years ago, literally at the beginning of COVID. But I obviously designed it before COVID started and launched the facility in Bridgeport. It was quite difficult for me, probably for most people through COVID, because I'd never run a facility. So that was hard. Labor was ridiculously hard trying to find people through COVID. But I just persevered, because I already had a brand. And so I already had people buying my product. And COVID was actually not bad for e-commerce. It actually was beneficial. So our business, went down a little bit, but not significantly. What was really hard was finding people to help us make the product. But we worked through it, and now we're in a much better position. And it's still a small facility, just 5,000 square feet, but we've expanded significantly from just making protein bars to cookies, granola, dried fruits, trail mixes, and a bunch of things like that. We're still mostly direct to businesses, direct to consumer, but now we're also expanding into retail stores or coming back again into retail stores. So yeah, so that's where we are right now. We're also a mission-based business. So not only do we make products and vertically own the entire channel, but we work with young kids with autism who come here to our facility. So these are the Fairfield County Public School Systems has a program where young adults graduated from high school but not yet in college want to get vocational training, and so they come here and we give them some vocational training and help them get the level of confidence to go out and find jobs out there or eventually hire them. So that's a big part of why I like running a facility, is because do those initiatives, and then obviously those initiatives play into the mission of the company, but it's kind of twofold. Yep.
That's cool, but you're not a social enterprise, right?
I'm working towards the B Corp right now, and so we just started the process. Yes, minority-owned business, and also just a little bit of background. I came to this country when I was 18, from India. So I'm an immigrant, and hire a lot of local people from Bridgeport, immigrants. So I'm a big believer in that kind of immigrant hustle, mentality and workforce. Yeah.
That's great. We're going to come back to all of this for both of you, but before we do, I want to give Breno a chance to introduce himself and tell a little bit about your business. Breno, with the coffee business.
Sure. Yeah, my name is Breno Donati, and my business is Winfield Street Coffee. We run coffee shops. Started in 2015. After I had a run of about 3 years running a restaurant, my own restaurant, and then I decided to go into a more casual business, which was a coffee shop. Also came to the country at 18. Like Arshad. I also big believer on the immigrant hustle, and I try to coach that kind of hustle and work ethic into all of my American employees as well, because there's a lot to learn from that, a lot to learn from, just the work ethic that comes from not having grown up with the kind of opportunities that you get here in the United States, because I've lived in 2 different countries before moving to America, and there's no doubt in my mind that I wouldn't have the same results had I done the same type of work in the other countries that I lived in.
Tell us a little bit about the business itself, Breno.
Yeah, so business, we're a community coffee shop. We also have a social aspect to it, which is very important to us. We donate meals to homeless housing. We work in Stamford locally. We work with Inspirica Housing, Pacific House. We work with Domos kids as well. So that's the way we do that is for every $20 check, we donate a meal. The meal consists of a sandwich and a cookie. And we involve our customers and our employees on packing those meals, delivering those meals, and we really go based on demand. We kind of keep count of how many checks we've gone through, and anytime there's a request, we go like, okay, here deduct 100 meals from the account and deliver that. We donated in 2020. We donated 6,200 meals, I believe, and then 2021 last year was almost 10,000 meals as well. But the coffee shop is your I would say your typical community-based coffee shop. Our mission is really comes with customer service first, and then coffee second, and third is the food. A lot of other peers in my industry, they get into the coffee shop business because they love roasting or they love the product. I love the product. That's just not my number one love. My number one love would be, people and talking to people. And then so we always look for, when we're hiring, we look for people that are people first. Yeah.
That's so important. You could have that, although I guess I think of the Seinfeld episode where it doesn't matter, no soup for you, and they don't have any customer service. I think that's the exception. I don't think that's the norm. But
there's a lot to be said to a great product, but I think that in my industry, that only gets you in the door. Like, you're expected to have a good product nowadays. There's a lot of competition, so that's really just you're just, that's the minimum requirement, to have excellent product. And then aside from that, how do you differentiate?
that's great. So, but I'm going to stick with you on the next question, which gets to sort of our audience a little bit, because my sense is that the three of you have different kind of experience coming into your businesses. And let's start with your college major, and how did your college experience prepare you for entrepreneurship? And then is there something that you think college could have prepared you better for in your experience?
I didn't have the typical college experience, American college experience. I worked throughout. I had to give up some classes. There was some semesters that I only had 2 classes. Eventually I got my bachelor's degree. It's behind me, general studies. And the reason why it was general studies was because it was the only thing that could combine my different classes that I had taken in Brazil and in at the community college. So what I wanted was a business degree, but this allowed me to take all the business courses and allowed me to graduate a year or 2 sooner than I would have to. Now, college was super important. I mean, just so important. Structurally, just meeting deadlines, having to sit down and do big projects. More and more, I look back to my college time, and the more professional that we get, and next month we're going to have our store number 10. So the more I deal with investors and banks and staff is also looking for a structure. And the more I look back at my college time, where I'm like, I was forced to take hours of my time and say no, we're going to finish this project. We're going to, and there's guidelines and there's rules and, and all that stuff. So it was crucial, I think, going to college. A lot of people say that college is dead nowadays, but it's not as much as your degree or the name, on the wall. It's just about the experience of having to do all that and have the grades and having to meet and, deal with the professors and all that, reading books, and, it's important.
Great. Lucy, what about your college experience? What was your major, and what did you learn in college about and apply to your entrepreneurship. You said you had a full-time job and this was your side hustle. What was your full-time job, and did that align with sort of your major? And then finally, what classes do you think your college experience could have or should have included to help you maybe eliminate any of the struggles you might have had so far?
Yeah, thanks for the question. My college journey was also a roller coaster. First, I didn't think I was going to go to college. I didn't know that was, my parents, didn't have money for that. I had an older brother. They were already, trying to put him through college, and I was 2 years, behind him. So, my goal was actually always to go to college in New York City for music. It had to be those three things. And I got accepted to a bunch of colleges. The scholarships were, partial, or it was, the housing wasn't going to be covered. So there was always not enough money, for me to be a full-time student somewhere. So my high school, North High School, they gave me a music scholarship to go to the community college. And so I took it, but I actually had to take some business courses because there was no actual music major. So I took, I think it was Intro to Marketing, Business Management, Business Law, Selling, a bunch of business classes. So it was, kind of, it's kind of funny, that I took these classes, and back then I was dreading them. I was like very depressed about the situation because I'm like, this is not who I am. I don't even care about business law, business management. It was just, I was in that state of mind. And then fast forward a year, I actually applied for another music grant, and they covered all of my undergraduate years once I transferred, including housing. So I feel like I am lucky in that I was blessed, with these musical talents from my family, from my ancestors. But at the same time, I think I am proud of my own determination to always have these clear goals for myself. And even though sometimes the universe doesn't give them to you right away, if you really do believe in yourself, you're gonna encounter those opportunities, and you're gonna be ready for them. Because I feel like I wouldn't have appreciated my college experience if it was given to me so easily, and it wasn't given to me. I had to really push myself. My own mental my mental health was tested during those times where I was like, what am I doing? Why am I doing here in these marketing classes? And now it's funny because now I'm like, okay, I wish I had been paying more attention in those marketing classes. I want to know how to, what to do right now with increasing, my followers and people that engage with me. So it's kind of funny. But yeah, so I studied music, and I loved it because it was my biggest goal, and I got to do that, and not just take classes that really challenged me and pushed me as a creative person, but I think college is not really, I think half is the classes that you take, but the other half is the actual experience, the people that you meet, the professors that you have, those relationships. Because I think another blessing that I think came from college is really the group of friends that I have. If I hadn't, gone there, I wouldn't have that solid group and that sense of community that I think is so necessary for all human beings. But anyway, fast forward, I was just I actually interned a lot with social nonprofits, really focused on music education, and I was a classically trained cellist growing up, and so I really gave back to the community in that way during my teenage years and early 20s, just helping out a local organization in Stamford, Connecticut called In Tempo, where they offer scholarships, and I think it's mostly free or very low rates for mostly immigrants and just children that don't have the means to have a music education. So I interned with them during those stages of my life, and I learned a lot about grant writing, development work, how to, fund a nonprofit. So that's why that took me to my job that I just left, where I became the development manager, and my role was, my big task was really, raising $1 million for the year. Just basically myself and the two co-directors. So it was a big challenge. But I did it. I feel like I always have that trust in myself, and sometimes these numbers seem crazy because I've never had, $1 million. I've never seen it in the bank, and then to see that in the organization's, statements, it's kind of crazy. But it wasn't, even though I was really fortunate to learn and work alongside this group of people, it really wasn't like the type of job that was fulfilling for me, even though I was very much aligned with their vision. They're actually a nonprofit that is also social justice. They are focused on empowering and organizing immigrant youth here in Connecticut. They're called Connecticut Students for a Dream. And I loved my time there, but I just knew that writing grants, applying for foundation support, it wasn't a creative job for me, and it just wasn't it. So that's why I actually had this side hustle where I could, think more about my creativity, be more surrounded by, just pursue things that really motivate me. And that's why I took this leap of faith, and I'm risking it all, really, once again, to just go after what really drives me. So yeah, right now, like I said before, I wish I had paid more attention in those business classes. But overall, I feel that young people are not equipped, and really we're not taught things like taxes, things like when and how to create an LLC, or things like that are so necessary for really any person. Any person can think about it, starting a business, and every person has to do their taxes. All these things that seem so basic for adults are really not taught in schools. I think I wish those things were more incorporated in those general studies classes.
That's great. Good feedback and advice. And if they're not taught, maybe students can find them elsewhere outside. I know that we, shameless plug, we offer classes on financial literacy, etc. But that's great advice. It sounds like both of you so far have set yourselves up to be entrepreneurs, because you had to be an entrepreneur of sorts to get yourselves through college, right? You both said you had to do all these things to toggle together your credits and get through. You didn't go through the normal, way that the colleges write it, right, in all the brochures, etc. So you really had some pretty good groundwork and good experience before you even started on a business. So Arshad, how about you? Where did you go to school? What did you study? And all of the above.
Yeah, so my background was a little bit interesting because I came to this country based on college. So college gave me admission and scholarship. So that was basically sort of my ticket to the US. And again, that was when I was 18, and undergrad. And then I came on an F1 visa, and then I went to grad school right after that, so I could continue staying in the US on a visa. And my undergrad was in physics and math because there was I was interested in those topics, but also there was a big demand for students in sort of the STEM areas. And then my master's was in applied environmental policy work. And then I went to work for some consulting companies. Then I went back to business school many years later, 6 years later, Chapel Hill, and I'm a big proponent of college. I think think it helps you it helps you build a strong base of different areas of knowledge. And it's so interesting because my son is just getting ready to go to college. He's a senior, he's applying, and we were having this discussion of entrepreneurship, and there's this big movement of people talking about, why do you need to spend money for college? Why can't you just be an entrepreneur? And I think for some people that might be the right avenue, just go do something and see what happens. But I think for a lot of people, college helps you get to those discussions. It helps formulate, what's important to you. And sometimes when you're 17, 18, 19, you just don't know it. And I think college sort of helps you discover those things. Plus, I think there's this fusion of entrepreneurship now in colleges that was not there when I went to college. And so you're getting, a lot of the sort of the new digital stuff, plus the more regular stuff, the physics, the math, the liberal arts and all of that is still being taught in colleges. So I'm a big believer that college is not just, it's not a required thing. It's more like you really got to invest in it. You're there, you're paying a lot of money to be there. You really got to use those 2-4 years to really, build your foundation for life. And so that, college did a lot for me. I wouldn't be here doing any of this if it wasn't for my years of college. And I also think one of the things that I tell people a lot is, you're going to change a lot through life, but the foundations you pick up through college are going to be essential. So I did a master's in environmental policy. I went to business school for marketing strategy. I apply all of that in the work I do in my business today. But I'm not a physicist, I'm not a mathematician, I'm not an environmental policy person, I'm an entrepreneur, right? And so I think this country is built on people who applied so many different things and then done something with stuff.
That's right. Well said. What do you wish, because you went to 3 different schools, have different degrees, what do you wish that you had taken, whether it was offered or not, that would have helped you maybe not had to learn it the hard way? Is there any course that university could have offered?
Yeah, I think languages. Well, when I came to this country, obviously I spoke some Indian languages, but I think it's really important to be trained in the classical languages that are prevalent in this country, Spanish, maybe even my daughter's learning Chinese now because she realizes that, she's in 10th grade. She realizes that there's going to be a need for people to know a little bit of Chinese, because it's a big part of the world. Arabic. I mean, there's just so many languages that are critical to you being just a more connected person in America, in the world. So I think that's one gap, and it's harder to learn languages later. I think you can, but it's a little bit harder. I also tend to be somebody who's more like nonfiction, the harder sciences, and so I wish I took a little bit more of the arts in college. Just things that are not always targeted towards a job, but more like just to grow yourself as a person. Like history could be an interesting one. So, for whatever it's worth. But again, I think about college as learning, but you're learning all through life, and so it doesn't mean that once you leave college you can't still be learning.
Right. I'm going to stick with that sort of theme, but remembering that our audience are students. What do you think? What was, or can you give more than one, bigger hurdles when you first came out? So Breno and Lucy, you both sort of, well, actually, all 3 of you were sort of pushed into the companies that you established, right? But I know you may not have been pushed into it as much as the other two, but Arshad, you know, your son, you wanted to help him, and Lucy, the pandemic, what am I going to do? And it was your side hustle. What was some of the surprises, if you will, or hardest things that really came out of nowhere that you had to overcome initially? Because again, our audience are thinking about being entrepreneurs or are in the early stages of entrepreneurism. So maybe give them some of the benefit of your experience on some of the harder things. Lucy, do you want to start on that?
Yeah, definitely. I have a bit of a funny experience actually. So I started selling, or thought to myself that I want to start selling the things that I'm finding when I go to flea markets, when I go to vintage or antique stores, you know, vases, lamps, art, whatever. And so I just decided with my friend, we went on Canva, made a little logo for myself, made an Instagram account, and that was it. I did not make a business plan or anything like that. I just started posting things for sale. And my very first sale, I sold this 80s Art Deco lamp, and somebody was purchasing it from LA. And I was like, okay, cool. They paid for it. They paid for, you know, everything. And then I packed up the lamp. I went to FedEx to ship it, and they were like, "Oh, it's going to be $200 or something crazy to ship the lamp because it was a big package. It's you know, a big lamp, heavy package." And I was like, "I can't spend, you know, more on shipping than what it costs. You know, it makes no sense." So then I went to the post office, and they gave me like a lower rate, but it was still something crazy, like $150. And then I went to the UPS. I think they also gave me like a really high estimate. And then luckily for me, the first sale was actually through Facebook Marketplace, I believe. And so they gave me like 3 days to ship the lamp. So on day one, I didn't get to do anything because I wasn't willing to like pay that much and like lose my profit. On the second day, I decided to actually message a vintage reseller that was doing something similar to what I wanted to do. And I asked her, because I've actually also bought from her, from this seller in Long Island, and she shipped things that I wanted for my home. And I was like, hey, like, how much does shipping usually cost for this? Have you shipped to LA? You know, what do you do? Because I had like no clue. And she was like, oh, you need to like get, like, first you need like a scale to weigh your own items. I didn't have a scale. I don't even think I had like fragile stickers for my stuff, for my boxes. And she told me about this website where you basically just plug in, you know, your address, the recipient's address, the packages, dimensions, and the weight, and then it just gives you like a bunch of options for shipping from all of the, you know, like UPS, FedEx, all of them, but very discounted prices. Like, I think shipping ended up being like $40 as opposed to $200, which would have been like the price at the store. So that was like the huge tip for me, because most of the things that I have sold have been things that I have to ship. So that was like that was on my very first sale, you know, one of the biggest pieces of advice, and, you know, things that seem so simple, like the shipping process, but so important to a business that relies on, you know, shipping out my items. I haven't, my whole thing is an online business. I don't have a retail location. So that was a big learning curve for me, but something that, you know, was, looking back at it now, you know, it's funny, but back then I was so stressed. I thought I was gonna just, you know, lose this sale. But yeah.
Sure. Thank you. Breno, what was one of your bigger hurdles that you overcame, and how?
So many. Jeez. Oh my gosh. I mean, I guess a big part of it, I learned to I guess, do things a little more diligently, take time for things. I know that I lost one of my stores when I didn't have, I signed leases, my first 2 leases I signed without a lawyer run through it, and I lost one of the stores because of that, where we had a 3-year lease, and it was I thought it was automatically my option to renew for 2 more terms of 3 years, and that wasn't the case. So somebody bought the building, and they decided they wanted to run the coffee shop themselves because they thought I was doing well. So they kicked me out, and that was our second store in the Westport train station, and that was yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, reading I mean, understand really. I can I read leases now, but I still don't understand them. So it's, you know, I mean, lawyer fees go for $500 an hour. So
Right.
it, you know, that's a big hurdle. No matter how much money you have, that's a big hurdle, you know. But you know, it's something very necessary. The contracts matter, honestly.
Yeah,
Uh,
and that's a
we have
tough lesson.
Yeah, I mean, and think about it. Now we have we open we opened 3 stores in New York City, and those leases, each of them is about 200 pages long.
Wow.
I mean, it's just so much paperwork, so much, you know, lawyer language that, you know, it's just hard to comprehend. We have one of our stores in Naples, Florida, that's 2 pages long, and I love that lease because it's so simple. That one I can understand. But, you know, as I am a you know, entrepreneur, where I created the business, I have to personally guarantee everything. So I do have 3 business investors, but, you know, their name is obviously nowhere. You know, it's sort of where, yes, personally guaranteeing. So that's a big risk, and
Right.
that's what I like to remind them all the time. I remind everybody that, you know, you take risks. It's my family. I have two kids, so this business is everything for me.
Risk is you can't be risk averse if you're an entrepreneur, I think.
Yeah.
So, Arshad, what about you? What hurdle did you face, and how did you overcome it that came out of the blue, maybe?
Well, I mean, COVID was a massive hurdle, right? And I think one of the things that I have, so you know, I went down the traditional route of going to college, getting a corporate job, earning a paycheck, right? And I got used to that paycheck, and especially out of business school, got used to getting paid well. And then when I was an entrepreneur, I felt like I was going back to being 19 years old, sleeping on a mattress, eating ramen noodles. And, you know, I'm comfortable doing that just because I'm just very much that grit, you know, sleeping in my car instead of paying for a hotel room. That's all me. You know, I get it. But sometimes it gets old when, you know, you just have to do it over and over and over again as an entrepreneur. And so you really have to love what you're doing. I think that's the most critical thing. Like, if you don't love it, the chance of surviving as an entrepreneur gets pretty low. And then I think the other thing is understanding, like, profit loss, understanding the business side of your business. A lot of entrepreneurs, including myself, don't get excited by it. Like, we get excited by the product we make, you know, the marketing and at least for me, it's building cool products, you know, getting it to people, doing the tasting, doing the sampling. That's what's exciting to me. And I 100% avoid financial statements, all of that, right? And luckily, I've had to, you know, pay an accountant and a good bookkeeper to take care of that. But I also find myself investing time now, just even if it's like a Friday afternoon, 3 hours, just paying attention to the finance side of the business, because I think it's just critical. The legal side is really important. We just got a lawsuit handed to us because we wrote a blog article where the writer took an image from the internet, put it in the blog article. There are all these lawyers out there who are basically searching the the internet for blogs that have images that don't have image credit given to them, and they're just basically coming to you with this formed letter for like $3,000 to $5,000 of ransom, right? And it's just going on. It's rampant. These are like all across, especially small businesses. And we showed the lawyer that, hey, this is an image that is free. It clearly says it on the image for commercial use free. And the lawyer's like, no, we don't care. So you didn't give us credit, you didn't give the person credit, you got to pay $2,500. And it's, and it takes you, deviates you totally off course. Like you're focused on your business and now you got to fight this thing. And we're fighting it and you got to get a lawyer involved in it. But I think this is just part of being an entrepreneur, right? You're going to get these curveballs constantly thrown at you, some that are absolutely not fair. And that's just part of being an entrepreneur. So my biggest advice to students is that entrepreneurship has been put on a pedestal. You look at like Jobs, or Bezos or Elon Musk and all that, but you never see the crap they go through on a daily basis. And I guarantee you they go through a lot of that. It's just not publicized. So just be aware that there is quite a bit of your entrepreneurship life, and that's going to be curveballs constantly thrown, but at the same time you're going to have this massive opportunity to hopefully love the work that you're doing. But it's not all roses, and I think it's completely okay that it's not, because that's just part of building a great business, is to have the resiliency.
That's right. You got to have your head on a swivel, right? They're coming at you from all angles, the legal angle, tax angle. There's all kinds of things out there.
That's so true, Arshad.
Yeah, and also, I think one
is just incredible how I feel like many times I'll have like 2 days with no issues whatsoever, and I feel like on top of the world. And then as I'm stepping out of the house, like the image that comes to my mind is like somebody pushing me into a hurricane again. And like one of the things that I feel like a huge thing that I wish somebody told me in the beginning, it's like, no matter what happens, you must keep like your head like straight. No matter what happens, like take your naps if you need to, turn your phone off if you need to, whatever you need to do, you must, because. And today people ask me like, oh, like you have places in 3 states, like how can you keep yourself sane? And it's like, well, I've been sued, I've been through government audits, I've been, people quitting on me, like last minute. I've been through those emergencies that maybe 7 years ago, the way I reacted to it's like, it's over, like, my gosh, it's all done. And this day I'm like, just one more thing. It's like, there's no emergencies that are too great, like nothing, like literally nothing. If you think about the worst case scenario, you feel much better about yourself, because the worst case scenario is never as bad as it seems in your mind. And then, I mean, the other part that really puts me through everything, it's, my faith life. I'm, Christian, and I have a big thing in my office, as Proverbs 16:3, it says, put God in charge of your work, then what you plan will take place. So just thinking that it doesn't really depend on me. That's not like, it's not really up to me, right? I don't believe in coincidences, and I don't believe it's up to me. I believe that if things are meant to work out, they will work out, because God has a plan. That's what keeps me going.
That's great. That's great advice.
I also think one more thing that I just want to say is like, entrepreneurship typically is discussed as being big, right? You talk about Elon Musk and Bezos and and everything is like a scale, like they may, but there are plenty of really successful entrepreneurs who've kept things small, right? And there's absolutely nothing wrong in having a small, profitable business doing really cool stuff. And the word profit is really important. I think for many years I ran a business that was top line, was doing amazing. We were in 3,000 stores, Whole Foods, Wegmans, Stop and Shop, everything, but we were not profitable because we were so big. And now we are a smaller business compared to being 5 years ago, way more profitable. And I think, and it really takes a lot of stress off you where, you know, we're bootstrapped, we don't have any investors and we're doing great and we have no desire to get investors or anything like that. And that like completely takes a whole layer of stress away from me. And I think this is the thing I encourage a lot of people to think about is, and Bruno, I know you've gone down the investor route, but there's plenty of people who keep it bootstrapped, small, you know, within the family or whatever it is, just tight, and you're content with that. You're content with just doing great work and staying within, you know, your, what I call your sphere of greatness. Whatever your greatness is, do great work. And there's always going to be an audience for that great work. You know, whether that is, you know, making amazing cookies and just selling it in New York City to people, to whatever, one small niche market. Especially the internet has really allowed like small businesses to flourish because you have this ability now to tell your brand story to people. So you're not just selling in New York City. The internet allows you to sell across the world your story, and then all of a sudden everybody in your story can buy it from anywhere in the world. And so I think this emergence of small profitable entrepreneurship in the last, I would say 5-6 years has really, I love it, because I've pivoted myself from being somebody who wanted to be really big to now somebody who's very content being smaller and highly profitable, and, you know, working an average week. I still work a lot, but an average week is a 40-hour week for me, you know, and it used to be nothing less than 60 to 70-hour weeks before. So
I think you've put it well, Arshad. People think, don't realize how many those hour weeks, right? I don't think you said it perfectly. It's entrepreneurship is sometimes put on a pedestal, and all those things that you've been talking about, all three of you have been talking about figuring, about realizing, wait a minute, shipping is outrageous and I can't control that necessarily, right? Or the legal ramifications, lawsuits, taxes, etc. And so, wait a minute, now I've been working, that's all I do is work, right? And then sometimes you want to downsize and you want to make it scalable for you, for your happiness and life, which leads me to ask you, how do you define success? Arshad, I think you just did, right? I think you just defined success for yourself. How do others, so I have two more questions before we leave everyone, and that is, how do you define success, but also sort of unrelated, so I apologize for having two unrelated questions, but are there any tools or resources that you would recommend that helped you or that are out there? Lucy, you referenced just that mailing tool, right? The shipping tool that was really good, and relying on really kind of a competitor, and just relying on the help of others. So that's sort of something informal maybe that you use. But how do you define success, Lucy?
This question makes me think of one of my favorite books, The Four Agreements. It's a spiritual type of self-help book. And one of my favorite chapters is about always doing your best. And the author says that if you always do your best, then that kind of takes away the having to feel guilty, having to feel shame, having to feel that you're not doing enough. Because even if you're doing your best, that's really all you have, your best, you know? And your best looks different when you're sick versus when you're very, very healthy. But no matter what, just doing your best. And I think that's something that for me gave me like a more liberation in just knowing that it sounds kind of, you know, a little cheesy, but I think that sometimes we're just too hard on ourselves. But I feel like the solution is kind of in just trying to do everything you can with what you have.
That's great. And any other tools besides that shipping tool that are out there, resources that
yeah, so I guess For businesses that are based on, that have to do with online shipping, there is two websites that I've used. One is pirateship.com. And I actually prefer that one. There's another one called Shippo.com, and I think there's one that's with the United States Post Office. But the great thing is that if you're shipping something that's very valuable, you should always get insurance, because it's happened to me. All of my things are very fragile. They're usually very valuable. And sometimes, no matter how much care you put into wrapping something up with, lots of bubble wrap, lots of paper, etc., things can arrive broken, and it's really disappointing when that happens.
Right.
But when I bought the insurance, they've been able to refund me the cost of the item, so my customer, is able to at least have their money back. So always, buy your insurance. And even greater advice, I think, is really creating or finding a community that is based around exactly what you want to do. Because even before I launched my business, I was already communicating, following a bunch of other vintage shops online. And I was purchasing from them or just interacting with them. And so when it was my time to, announce that I was launching my own thing, all those people were very, very supportive of me, and they are able to, social media is one of our great tools, so they can reshare my post and direct their followers to my account, to my, and it really does help with sales sometimes. So I think there is a lot of power in community, whether that is in person, like Reno was saying, or also online.
Great, thank you. Reno.
Success for me, it's being able to spend time with my kids, honestly, and having my business partners happy, my staff happy. I think that's customers. I'm not a subscriber of the customer is always right. I think we have different tastes. We're all human, and I feel like I find a lot of joy when somebody loves my product, but I'm not obsessed with getting everybody to love my company. I think that the right set of customers, the right community, like Lucy spoke about, the right community, we have found that community in each place that we've opened, and we don't need 100% of the people in the town to like us. We just need our strong, faithful, regulars, and that's important. Lucy, I'm probably off topic here. We'll talk later, but we have done some great pop-up shops at the Stamford shop. And if you ever want to do like an in-person thing, they're usually pretty successful. We do that with a lot of local entrepreneurs because it provides more value to our customers. We don't gain anything financially, just to add something to the overall environment. So it's really, really cool if you want to do a pop-up there.
Yeah, thank you so much for the offer. Yeah, let's talk later.
And that's one of the things that we talked about, the networking thing and working together. Arshad, you have the last microphone here. So parting words of wisdom.
Yeah, I think one of the big differences between when I went to college and now is that you as the person is more valuable than the company you work for. So it's really, really important to build your persona. And you can start with having a website about yourself, having LinkedIn profile be really active. And it doesn't matter what you do, because you're going to pivot in life, but build your persona up, because that's the only thing you control at the end of the day. You could be selling on Amazon. Amazon can take that away from you. You could have a coffee shop and somebody could sue you, right? But you as a person keeps growing and keeps manifesting. And so I think that's really important. I have seen people just do amazing things by having a YouTube channel, by having an Instagram channel, TikTok. I mean, any of these media channels where it's about you and your creativity is so important now. And also it also forces you to be careful what you put on media. Like, you know, within reason, just be aware that whatever you put out there is public knowledge forever. And so I think it's positive always, because people are watching you and people are evaluating you. And you know, I do a lot of work on LinkedIn since I've started the company, and probably more in the last 6 months. And the amount of inbound calls I get, work I get, networking I get from that is just insane. And I don't pay anything for LinkedIn ads or anything like that. And so I'm blown away at what the internet has done for me. And I encourage all young people, you know, going through college who have grown up on the internet to use it to build their career.
Right. Thank you very much. I want to thank each and every one of you for your time. You've really helped us and shared some of your stories of struggles and successes. I don't see any questions in the chat. I'll give folks another minute to post some. I've sort of incorporated anything that came in the conversation. But while we give people a second to type in a question, I'm just going to close out by inviting people to fill out the questionnaire at the end, because again, as I mentioned in the beginning, it's very helpful for us to provide what you want. We think we know what you'd like to hear about, but if you don't tell us, then we can't provide what you need. As soon as you leave today's webinar, that's what you'll get, is that questionnaire. And Melinda, do we have any other questions?
We have quite a few questions.
Oh my goodness, I missed some of them. I'm so sorry.
Totally fine. So we have a few that are specific to you folks, and then we have a few that are for all of you. So the first one is for Arshad. How long does it take to design a product? What did testing look like, and how do you earn money during the R&D phase?
Yeah, I think sometimes it can be a long time, but I'm a big believer in what's called MVP, minimum viable product. So again, the internet allows you to iterate really fast. You can put a website up on Shopify is a great e-commerce platform, but you can also do it on, Square.com. It's like literally $10. Get a website up and running, add Stripe to it. Again, another $10. You're about $20, $25 in. Throw some minimum viable products up. Do it as a free purchase. So you're getting people to pay for your idea before you've actually even created your product. You're just throwing up ideas up there. And then you can test the hypothesis. Does somebody like your idea? Like, for example, we're making cookies that are gluten-free, that are nut-free and all that. We're going to take pictures of the cookies, put them up, do some videos. And if enough people order, we know that the cookie has legs. And then we'll put an early version of the cookie up, get some iteration, do another version of it. And so I think all in, your cost of getting a product up and running is so low now compared to what it was 10 years ago, that you don't have to, be in debt to get something off the ground. And then I think the other thing is like, and I didn't do this, but I'm a big believer that this is a good approach, is do whatever your idea is. If you want to be an entrepreneur, have your regular job with a paycheck, and basically, let's say you come back at 5 p.m., 6 p.m. From 6 p.m. to 1 a.m., work on your side hustle. So your regular job is paying for your side hustle till your side hustle becomes big enough to pay, right? So don't give up your regular job. And I think, it's completely doable. The internet allows you to work from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m., whatever it is, right? Doing your side hustle. So, and that allows you to not go into debt.
Wonderful, thank you so much. So this next question is for Breno. You mentioned that you have multiple locations. How do you know when it's time to open a new location, and what kind of research do you have to do?
How do I know when it's time to open a new location?
Yes, and what kind of research do you have to do?
All right. So when I think the most of the opportunities, we're thrown opportunities, honestly, like locations from realtors, from other businesses that maybe want to go out and ask, like, would you like to take over my lease? And my job is to sort of sift through it and see, one, if we can take it, if we have the manpower, the staff, the money for it, or if we lined up with a bank in order to get a loan or not for certain location. And then second is I've I'm very fortunate to have one of my business partners who is incredible at looking at metrics and calculating possible return and seeing if it makes sense. Now, I'm more of like, sort of gut check, where I go, like, I watch and I see like how many people are passing by. I sometimes I click, or if there's a Starbucks across the street, how many customers that Starbucks is getting. But you feel when it's right to open. It's you have to be able to do it. You have to be to know that mentally, and with the staff, your staff is going to be able to handle it. But there's nothing wrong with delaying or not opening more. Like Arshad said, there's nothing wrong with staying small. My dad has been my probably the person who discouraged me the most from opening multiple locations. To this day, he's still like, like, can you just choose one and then just like stay with that one? And I'm like, no, I can't. If I did that when COVID hit, we had 4 stores, and one of them was really making most of the profit. And when COVID hit, that location was the one that went down so dramatically. And the other ones actually went up, and I was able to level up the company. So I was actually this close, because the pressure was so big. I was this close to like really getting rid of 3 locations and keeping that one location in Croton-on-Hudson that was making most of the money for the store. And I was gonna either sell or do something with the other 3 locations. Then COVID hit, and the one in Croton-on-Hudson that's located inside a train station still not recovered to this day, because people are not taking the train in a wealthy area like Croton-on-Hudson. Meanwhile, the 3 other ones that we had that were more like downtown, like Stamford, flourished. Stamford location, completely beat estimates out of the, I know the student, UConn students were not there for, until like a couple months ago, but the downtown and the people not going to New York City, it was a crazy surge of business for that location. Plus, we used our contacts, the network in the community, and we started putting events and putting fitness classes outside, and doing parties on the patio, and just doing pop-up shops and doing worship services, and just doing all sorts of things. And our location was really great for that. Early in the pandemic, I lost a friend for overdose. He was a drug addict, and he, that the restrictions were too much, I guess, for him. He went back and he died. And so it was one of my missions when we reopened in May of 2020, was making sure that we brought the community, as fast as we could, and do events, And I always told people, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna put events. You don't feel comfortable coming, that's okay. Like, that's totally fine. Everyone is entitled to their own decisions and to their own personal health risk and all. But as far as we're gonna do, we're gonna put this, because I feel like in my life, at least my personal experiences, the loss of life was bigger when people were not around other people. Not only this friend, but I have many kids of other friends who, because of not going to school and all that, was just they're depressed to this day. So I feel like it was a big toll.
Thank you. Lucy, this next question is for you. What strategies do you have for someone starting a business on social media?
Thank you for the question. I think, as I mentioned before, one is finding other shops that are similar to what you want to create, or at least have an aspect that is similar, because that was a big boost to my followers, was other people resharing my products, my items, or just random inspo pics that I would post that I would get from Pinterest. So that really helped. Some of my social media posts have gone viral, and it's really crazy. They out of nowhere, they were getting like 20,000 likes and reaching like 500,000 people. And so even though I wasn't paying attention, like I said, in those marketing classes, I was just testing things out using hashtags. You can use as many as 30 hashtags, and in my experience, you have to be very specific. So for example, if I'm putting a picture that is, I don't know, like a nice living room from like the 1970s, I'm gonna be hashtagging like 70s interiors, mid-century modern, whatever, things like that. Things are very specific, things that other like-minded people are following. And so that really boosted my follower count. So just testing things out, you have to get creative, because I think in any type of business, especially maybe online businesses, there is not like a clear-cut method of what works. So you kind of have to like test things out. There's so many tools. Like I think a TikTok is like the one social media platform that is not messing up people's like engagement with the algorithm, because sometimes the algorithm comes for me and like it just blocks me from people that follow me. Like I get not a lot of engagement, not a lot of, I'm just not popping up on people's feed, I think. So it's like a thing that I have to kind of figure out. But I see that TikTok is boosting other people's account by a lot. So that's something that I'm actually going to try to test out for myself, and get on TikToks that just follow things that inspire you, that inspire your business, and kind of do some of what they do, but do it your own way. And I think people really follow you for your passion, whether that's a client or just somebody that's admiring you from a distance. They're following you for who you are, for what you offer. So just stick to what you like, to what you know.
Thank you. We have two more questions, so any of you can ask or answer these, excuse me. So the first one is, how do you get business investors?
Could you repeat the question, please? I couldn't really hear it.
Yes. How do you get business investors?
Okay. For me, it was my first investor was a contractor, my contractor, and he was very interested in, he built one of our stores, and he was very interested in the business, and he wanted to diversify, and he was interested, especially in my faith life. He was really, he's also a Christian, and we just kind of bonded over that, and he decided to invest. He has built every single store since then, so it's kind of a symbiotic relationship. There are all different types, of investments. One of our investors also has invested through a visa program, a green card program, a fellow from Vietnam, and that is something that it's exploding in Asia, and the United States made it a path for people that want green card, want to invest in the country here. It's not something new. It's really something that's been going on for a long time. And as long as you get all the lawyers, T's and everything, correct, it's a good way to get money investors. There's a few companies in the States that do that intermediation and introduce investors to businesses. And then another way of investment is through bank, and there's a lot of paperwork involved. There's a lot of, numbers that have to tee up, and so your financing and your systems have to be really on point.
That risk thing, that again, right? It's on you. You had mentioned that earlier.
All right, and for the purpose of time, I'm going to go to the next question, and this is our last question. At what stage should you consult with a lawyer when starting a business?
So I would say it's important to do it really early on. I don't think you should, and you don't have to, be served a lawsuit to have discussions with a lawyer. I think there are lots of things that you could be doing sort of proactive to prevent it. One good example would be if you have a website, you should always have a disability feature on your website. Again, it's one of those things that lots of website owners have been handed lawsuits over, where they say your content is not accessible with people with disability, and you can make it accessible by putting your content through apps so somebody can read it who's blind, or and so on and so forth. And typically, again, as an entrepreneur, you're focused on your product, you're focused on getting the website up and running. You're not really thinking about everybody, all entities of the community. And so if you talk to a lawyer, they'll tell you that these things are things that you should worry about. And also, if you're building a product, every single word you put on the package needs to be scrutinized because it is customer facing. And so just sometimes, the more you think about it, it takes the joy out of the process that you're in, but it also protects you from financial indemnity later. So I think just work both. Also ask other entrepreneurs, other founders, hey, what are some issues that you face that are legal in nature? And they'll tell you, or they'll tell you most of it, and you can sort of see what applies to you. So I don't think you need to pay a lot of legal fees to get legal savvy, but you should definitely be legal savvy.
Anybody else have some thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, you should try and get a lot of information yourself, but at some point early in the process, you need to consult with somebody for sure.
Melinda, do we have any other questions?
We do not. That is all.
Again, I want to thank you guys, and I'm sorry that I couldn't see those questions, and that's why Melinda's there to help me. I am not that tech savvy. So again, I want to thank the three of you and our audience for spending time with us today. Thank you for sharing your story. It's been inspirational and informational. So I appreciate you and your time and learning more about the struggle and success stories of your entrepreneurs. Again, to our audience, thank you. You're going to get a survey. Please fill it out. And I just want to thank all of you. Please make the most of your day, the rest of your day. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.